a Mitsubishi turntable LT-5V. We're playing LPs, vinyls. Now this is made about early 1980s. It's in pretty good condition. I haven't turned it on or anything, and hopefully it's going to clean up nice and work. This one came with the operating instructions, which is normally lost, so that's good news. Now it looks like a normal horizontal player that is standing up vertically at the moment, as most of these vertical players made by Technics and others are pretty industrial looking blobs, squares of aluminium, and you can't see anything inside. But this one looks like a normal deck. You can see everything. You can see the linear tracking arm, which is nice, and it looks like it could be laid down and played normally. Well, it's got some feet, still nice and rubbery, so no, it's vertical, and it's got this clamping method. The perspex covers not broken, though it has got a crack here, and it's looking pretty good condition. It's a 240 volt model. Now a lot of people probably would think this is just a consumer grade player, but it's got a really good specification. You can download the service manual offline, and it's got some additional info in the book here. There's all sorts of things, how to adjust it, which is really good. Has tracking weight, all sorts of things, so this is quite useful. Weight 12.5 kilograms, pretty heavy. Now it says it comes with an Audio-Technica AT-12V moving magnet. If you look at the spec of that, that's a nice cartridge, elliptical, it's got good range and performance, so it was a good cartridge. And this was quite a good deck. It wasn't a cheap thing, just it was aimed at quite the enthusiast to get a good sound quality. Hopefully it's going to work. I haven't turned it on. I'm going to clean it up and check it out. It's made early 80s, as I said, so it's probably got some faults or something. Good figures on noise and wow and flutter and that, all looking good. This is still present, which is good as a centre for your 45s. That could have easily dropped off and got lost, so that's all good. The cover just flips up like that. It's got a really heavy duty rubber mat, which is I don't know how hard that was originally, but it's still got some rubbery speed adjustments, big perspex thing there. Pretty fancy arm. Now the cartridge is held on by 2 screws. It's a normal cartridge mount. A lot of these Japanese things had P mounts which plugged in, and you can't get many decent P mount cartridges these days if it's broken. Now according to this, it had an AT-12V, which I mentioned, it's a moving magnet, but looking at this one I see it's not an AT-12V. You can't see the writing from here, but I did take a photo of it, and it's an Audio-Technica AT-OC3MC, so it's a moving coil, and this is quite an expensive cartridge and very good performance. I downloaded the spec. Frequency response 15 to 50k. There's the low output. Good figures here, and tracking weight will be pretty low, probably about 1.25 grams. Yeah, 1.25 to 1.5, standard value 1.5 grams. So that's a really good cartridge. It's still got the cantilever and the diamond on the end. Hopefully that's not broken or damaged. Now it'd be a low output, so would this thing generate noise? Would it be any good? But as I said, the specification is pretty good for this, and I'm hoping it's going to sound really good now. So that's a bonus, real good bonus that is. Of course you need to have a moving coil preamp for it, because the low output, you can't just plug it into a MM input on a lot of preamps and amplifiers, so you might have to buy a moving coil preamp just to boost the signal a bit. So all looking good, nothing seems to be broken. There's the clamp for the record. This moves, linear tracking. It probably needs cleaning, greasing, whatever. Hopefully if I have to do any work on it, or going to be pretty good. As I said, you've got the service manual available offline. Plenty of info in here. Talks about the cartridge selection, which again says the AT-12V, so we know it's been changed. It's a belt drive, so the belt might need a changing. Tracking force. It's all information on here if it's gone wrong, how to fix it. Plenty of info. I did download the original spec for the AT-12V, which it did come with. Still a good spec. Look, 15 to 26 kilohertz. Came with elliptical diamond. 1.5 gram tracking weight, I think, here somewhere. So not a bad cartridge, even if it had the original. So looking good. I'll go careful, see if it works and get it cleaned up. This is the tracking weight adjuster. At the moment it's set to 0.5 gram. Moves very, very easily, so it looks like that. I don't know if it's supposed to move that easily, but anyway, we check out all that. It tells you how to set the tracking weight in here, which is interesting. And stylus height adjustment, and there's something about tracking weight here. Tracking force adjustment, it shows that. So I'll do a couple of tests. There's a lock-in here for the arm, which is nice. Looks like a pretty high quality bit of equipment actually. Hopefully it's going to work and sound great. Taken the back off so we can clean it up inside and have a look at the condition of the belts and all the drive wires. It's got a belt here, which is the main drive belt to the flywheel. There's a belt here and a belt here for one is to lower the arm and the other is to pull the arm along. There's a worm gear there. It's got some very sticky old grease on it. That needs to come off and be changed. There's micro switches. The speed control pots here, might as well clean them with some pot cleaner. Relay. Generally pretty dust on everything. There, just fine dust. Nothing to worry about. You can blow that off, brush it out. The whole cabinet seems to be made out of like compressed fibre, like you can buy like these days. It's like heavy duty fibre board. It's good for sound deadening. It doesn't ring like solid wood. The whole underneath is made out of similar stuff, so it's good for sound deadening. Inside, this is very heavy. I don't know if that's going to need any little bit of oil on that. Be careful not to get this. I'll clean these belts. Belts seem rigid, so I don't think there's going to be a problem. Two motors, one in here, little brass pullers. That's the back of the lens system there. Very easy to work on if anything's wrong with it. Just check these pullers. This is the drive wire needs to be tightened. It's very tight indeed, which is excellent. That just keeps the wires away. Wraps around here. It's got to move very, very smoothly for the linear tracking. So it's very easy to work on. I just clean that up, check it over, make sure everything's fine. The back is a nice strong bit of steel that adds some weight and gives some screening. A bit of sound deadening material glued onto it as well. The screws that hold it on just screw into this wood. If you took it off too many times you'd probably strip them out, but you're not going to be doing that. And there's a big spring for the lid in there. And there's a spring down there. Everything seems to be good, nothing broken. This is the guide rod. It's feels dirty. It needs to be cleaned up nice and get it nice and smooth. Clean this pulley. Yeah, looks pretty straightforward to get it all cleaned up. I've cleaned all the really sticky grease off of there using an old toothbrush and some cleaner, which you spray on the toothbrush, you rub it on, and then you rub it off on some paper. I've got all that off, and this is really nice and smooth operation now, which moves this. I've cleaned that up also with some of that spray cleaner and on a tissue. Moving this backwards and forward, I got it all off, and this is runs on the nylon rollers and it's really smooth. This giant spring here is what tensions the whole drive string there, which is fine. These are rubber blocks that the motors are mounted into, which is very good, which gives them some vibration isolation. These belts are fine. This is these little micro switches are muting micro switches, which mute the output from the pickup when it's moving backwards and forwards. Pick up really heavy duty screen cable with earth, comes right up here to this little board here where the pickup screen cables are joined and the mute cables. There's plenty of logic and everything here. Cleaned, blown off the dust, wiped it off, and everything's looking good. I'm just going to finish cleaning the case before I turn it on and check the operation. It looks like I cleaned the pots as well with some contact cleaner spray. Just spray it. They're open at the back, so you can spray it in and move these speed adjusters backwards and forwards just to clean up any oxidation that might have got in on the pots there. So some tape that has lost its stickiness but hasn't fallen off, that just holds a few little folded little bits of like cardboard just round some little fittings, which, and there's another one right in there. It's like a little cardboard box section around. There's a little moving mechanism here. It moves backwards and forwards. It's got a spring on the end. Not sure what that does, but anyway, that moves freely. Okay, checking the operation. I've plugged it in. To switch it on, you release the arm clamp here, which is when you pull it down, and then we can try doing the start down here. It started up. Motor's running. It's looking for the disc. It's moving really smoothly. This is running smooth. It's going back now. This is the pickup lowering, which is not going to do because there's no disc. It's just rotating. There's a micro switch on the end which stops it when it gets to the end. The motor's turned off, and as you can see, there's a light glowing on there which looks for the disc. So we'll turn it round in a second and have a look at the front operation. Okay, cleaning up the front of this unit. It's not bad condition, but there is some corrosion, especially on the side of this heavy duty platter. It's got quite a lot of pitting, which is unusual. The rest of it is okay. Now this mat was quite greyish in colour, and it had a lot of sort of marks all over it. There's still a few, but by using something like this Pampers Natural Clean and rubbing it off, it's come up quite nicely, a little bit more, and it might be fine. These slots, by the way, are where the lights shine out into this prism, and it tells the deck what size record's on, whether it's a small single or full size. The record covers up the light, and then it can set the arm down in the right position. The only drawback with this is if you put a see-through record, like a coloured record, the lights can still shine through and it won't actually play them, so you have to fit a paper blanking piece under the record to block the lights off. Most of the finishes looks like it'll clean up quite well. The feet are rubberized with some flexibility and a soft insert. They screw in and out, so you can level the thing up. And it's got serial number, etc. on the bottom. Now this clamp is a rotating part, and that has to be really free. As far as I can tell, there's nothing you can do with that. It hopefully rotates fine with the record and creates no noise. There's a little perspex scale on that. Those are the controls for speed, and there's a prism there. Also, this will, I'll show you this later, this will show you the tracking error as the arm has to keep up with the movement of the grooves, and this would tell you how it's doing. Taking the cartridge out at the moment for safety. So to get this off, by the way, if I wanted to, this unscrews. It's a right hand thread, the opposite way to normal, so unscrew it the opposite way, and then this is a push fit. It's very tight, so it'd probably be quite difficult to tap that off. It'd probably require quite a shock to knock that off. So I may try and do something with this, or just leave it. I've cleaned it once, but it didn't really do much to the corrosion. So just keep a little more cleaning up, and we can test the cartridge, and I hope that's going to work fine. I couldn't get the turntable platter off. It's a firm fit on the interference fit, and knocking it off was just not worth the effort. So to clean up this corroded edge, I use some G10 finishing compound, which is a very fine abrasive. Masked it up so that I don't get it on the table at all, and get it on some rag, and well, not rag, this is a decent cloth, and keep on rubbing it, and then polish it down, and it's much brighter now. I can't get the corrosion totally off, but at least it's looking quite shiny, and I think I'll leave it like that now. Checking the alignment of the cartridge in the head shell. They're very specific about the height of the stylus tip from underneath there. There was a gauge that came with the unit, of course that's lost now, which enabled you to fit it on and measure that distance there. But 18mm from top, just underneath there, to the tip, and I measured it close enough with this 18.33, so I think that's close enough. Now the distance, it can also slide backwards and forwards like this, and there was a point on here which you're supposed to align the tip. The reason for that is the tip will travel exactly at 90 degrees to the center of the turntable when it's mounted in there, so you get no tracking error. I don't have that gauge, so I'll probably have to check it by eye. When you put a record on, you can put a white piece of paper with a right angle, so you can get it dead off the center when it's mounted on, and you can see if the tip of the stylus rests on the line. Not too difficult to do. So that's a useful little gauge if anyone ever kept that. I've got to set up tracking force adjustment as well in a minute, so I'll do that. Another adjustment that needs to be checked is the height of the stylus as it approaches the record. I mean, if it was too low, it's going to catch on the edge of the record, and if it's too high, it probably won't lower properly. Again, there was a gauge which is missing, and it talks quite critically about having the stylus tip between the 3 lines, middle and maximum and minimum. And if it's not, you have to do an adjustment behind the weight, this weight here. You have to take it out and screw this in and out. Well, I've looked closely. I've just plugged it in. I pressed the lift and cue, which has raised it up, and look, it is above the record, which is a good thing. Whether it's correct, I don't know. I don't have the gauge. But anyway, I've put the record on. As you can see, the light's on, and we can try. You press the start button. It's moving across. It's gone down on the record in the right place, and there's a slight clicking noise coming from somewhere. Tracking error, says it's doing 33 RPM. Is it tracking across the record? You can see it moving like this. Tracking is pointing to the left, so I need to look up what that is. Indicators. When the 0 mark is illuminated, it's correct. When it's so, well, it's showing the tracking error pointing left. Let's have a look at the operation of this. I've taken the back off. I've also taken the pulley off. But when this turns it on, see there's no light, turn it on. The prism shines a light onto the side of the record, and it's reflected back off the little lenses that are set into the rubber. So if you've got a full-size record on, it covers them all up and there's no reflected light, so it knows it's a full-size record. Inside there are the strobes, which you can look at to set the speed. They're illuminated right down there. And this is the tracking error. Now in the head there are 2 lights that shine down onto photosensitive receivers, and it's normally set the 2 lights shining down, and it's in a balance mode, no movement. As soon as the arm moves one way or the other, it moves the pickup sensor, and the lights obviously don't shine on them the same, and changes the resistance of them, and that causes the arm and the electronics to move it, to balance it. So that's how it works as it moves sideways like this. The 2 lights vary on the sensor, and that's how it works. And this will tell you if it's working properly. It should be tracking left or right. Anyway, just show you how it works. We'll press the start, and everything starts up inside. That's the platter. Here's the drive mechanism. It's driving it into position, and then this lowers the arm, and these are the pickup muting micro switches. And back round this side, this would normally be going round, and this is showing neither left nor right. Now as soon as the record moves the arm, because the needle is in the groove and it's moving this way, as the arm moves like that, the whole carriage moves to keep up. Until it's vertical again. Now the problem with this is that I don't think one of the bulbs or pickups is working, because if it goes the other way, nothing happens. If you watch the tracking light, push it that way, it's tracking that way until it stops, and push it this way, nothing. So I'm pretty sure one of the bulbs must have gone out. And when it gets to the end of the record, I'll just show you. Get it right down the end. Just a bit more. It hits the micro switch, and then it lifts the arm, and then it winds it back with this motor here winds it all the way back, and there's a micro switch there which will stop it when it gets to the end. And also the stop there puts the arm back into the lowered position onto the mount, and the motor's gone off there too. So so there's one fault, and I reckon it's probably a bulb blown in there, which is awkward. I've just got to work out how to get to it. These are all the wires for the bulbs and the sensors, and there's some wires for the pickup that run all the way up there too. Okay, I'm going to check the tracking electronics, the bulbs and the sensors in here, see if there's anything wrong with it. And you can take the top metal plate off, this long plate here. It's just held on by 3 screws into the back. And then this is the carriage sensing unit, which is held on by 2 screws. It's got 3 bulbs, and they shine through these tracks here, and it tells the electronics whereabouts the carriage is. Now if you notice, there's 3 bulbs just in this black piece here and 3 sensors underneath, and if I just switch it on, you'll see the 3 bulbs, you should just see the 3 bulbs light. There's 2 on the moment. I'll just do that again for you. Switching it on now. 1, 2. I don't know if that came out, but the 3 bulbs do light, so we know. I'll just turn it off. So we know that the bulbs in that unit are okay. Just fixed through in the back, soldered into position if they were blown. So I've just got to have a look at the tracking sensor here. This is mounted on a sprung-loaded plate, which has got a screw in the side, so for position it to make sure it's dead center when it's at rest. So that's got the should have 2 bulbs and 2 sensors on there. Looks a bit more awkward to get it out to check it out, so I'm just going to do that now. To remove the tone arm assembly, you've got to undo. Take the shaft out, you undo this screw here, and just slide it down till it comes out of here. You take off these 2 screws that hold the wire, the cable assembly to it. And the next difficult part is to remove this, which is the lifter mechanism. It's screwed in from the back into the hole, and you get to it by removing this cover plate, which is held on by 2 screws. One is right under there, which is a bit difficult, and one along there. Then you have to get a 7mm driver and get it on this, on the end of this, and it's really tight. Once you've loosened it, you can screw it all the way out. And then that which came out under here originally, and there's the thing that lifts this up and down. Now the whole lot can be lifted off, which I'm just going to do. I've lifted up the whole mechanism so you can see inside, and there's only one bulb on. There's two bulbs there which shine onto the photosensitive parts, and only one is alight. There should be two alight. So that bulb just there, you can see as the mechanism moves, the light moves on the plate. So we've got to get a bulb, work out what it is. I think it's a little 12-volt bulb, and swap it out. Managed to get some replacement bulbs from a place called Bright Components. They're the 12-volt ones, clear. They also do them in colours, and they're very cheap. You get 10 for about £3. Making sure that they work. The original one is there. It seems fractionally smaller, but these are 3mm by 7mm, the size, the smallest you can get, and these are clear. They do them in colours. Testing them, I've wired two up in parallel to make sure that they're the same brightness approximately. Got a power supply here, just turn them up a bit brighter. I'm running about 5 volts. Make sure they work, so you don't want to put them in and then find that one blows immediately. Also need to put them in as a pair. The brightness might be totally different from the original ones, so the other one that's still in there might be dimmer or brighter, and which will mean that you're going to have to fiddle around adjusting the calibration. So make sure you got two that look about the same brightness. They do, and then I'm going to hopefully get them into the little module. I've replaced both the bulbs in the sensor unit. They did fit into the holes. They slid in. The white wires are the new wires. There's only two connections. This one on this side was where the wire did wrap round, and then there was a link wire, but I've wired them together. They've gone in. They are slightly loose, so the others had a little bit of like wax on them, so I will put a bit of glue on the back, either stick or something to hold them in position. Anyway, check that they work. Plugged it in, and just going to turn it on now. There they are, they both come on, so they're working fine. And of course they may be brighter or dimmer than the others, and there are some adjustments on the electronics for adjusting the sensitivity of the feedback from those. They're working, so I'm going to glue them in now. Reassembled the carriage with the new bulbs in, put it all back together, screwed all this back on here. This just keeps the wires off of rubbing when it moves along. And we can turn it on. It is on now. You can see the center is illuminated between the tracking left and right. Now if I move this like this, you can see it tracking until it stops, and if I move it the other way, see it tracking to the right until it stops on there. So it's tracking properly now, and when it's vertical it's on the 0. There is some sensitivity adjustments on the board. There's the two potentiometers for left and right, which can be adjusted if necessary. I'm going to see how well it tracks in a minute. So I've just got to do readjusting the tracking to make sure it's hanging vertically, which it appears to be. So when it stops, it's hanging vertically. Put the cartridge back in and track it up and see if we can get it to play. Right, to test the mechanism, to see if it's all working now, fitted the cartridge back in, playing weight at 1.5 grams, near enough. You turn it, I've turned it on here, you've got a switch, it turns on, the lights come on, it goes to 33. The prism comes on, which will shine on the record and look for reflections from the little reflecting things on the turntable mat. Determine the size of the record, and then in there in a minute there'll be the speed showing up on the strobe. It's a moving coil cartridge, so it's had to go through a moving coil preamp before it goes into moving magnet preamp and in through the tape recorder off to the hi-fi. Anyway, let's see if it works. So you press, you switch it on there, you press start, it's raised it up, it's moving it across to the record, it loads it onto the record, and it starts up. On here, oops, it shows the tracking error. If it's 0, it's tracking left and right following the groove properly. If it's not, it'll be slightly out. I'll just turn down the record a bit. And seems to be tracking perfectly at the moment. In here is the speed. If I just line it up, it's the 33 is the bottom one, should be stationary, which it is. I don't know if that shows up on here. Try and get it lined up. If it wasn't stationary, you can adjust it here. That clicking sound still coming from the spring, which is really annoying. It's tracking fine. We can try lifting. Let's see if the lifter Q works. Lift. It's lifted off. You can track left, which it is. Track right. Yeah, that works as well. The arm doesn't quite look vertical, but I think it is. And then you can lower it back on the record. Lowers it back on. Takes the mute off when it gets to the bottom. When it gets to the end of the record here, it'll lift off. If it doesn't lift off exactly in the right place, there's a little adjustment behind that rubber bung there. The tracking there is fine. Doesn't look like it needs any adjustment to the electronics to speed it up or slow it down. If you press stop, it lifts off. It's going to track all the way back. It will turn off when it gets to the end. It even tells you what it's doing there. And then it stops spinning. And then if you lock the arm here, the power goes off as well. I'm just going to check the vertical hanging of that arm, make sure it's right, and looks like I might adjust the cartridge slightly. I don't think that's in quite straight. I think it's quite. I haven't screwed it up quite straight. Okay, adjusting the not only the tracking weight, but making sure that the arm remains vertical when it's turned on and the motors are not moving. So first you need a spirit level. Make sure it is horizontal level that way, and then the arm when it's free like that. You can then do the tracking weight. You set this about 3 millimeters off by turning this weight out, which slowly comes out and pushes the arm in. I recommend 3 millimeter gap, and then when that's done, you turn the little center part without turning the outer wheel to 0, which it is. Then you get the whole of the outer part and rotate it. This goes from 0 to 2 grams, and as you can turn the whole part without moving the inner part. Half, one, say 1.5, and then that'd be the tracking weight set. The final thing I'm going to do is adjust the cartridge stylus so that it's running exactly in line with the center of the spindle. To check the alignment of the cartridge in the stylus and the cartridge in the head there, you've got these slots that move the cartridge up and down. Now the perfect alignment is when the stylus will be, diamond point will be exactly tracking in line with the spindle like that, but you get no azimuth errors or any other distortion. So you need to loosen the screws slightly. You have to be very careful. You raise the arm up and move it in, and then switch the power off so it stays in the raised mode. You make up a little card template by drawing a line for vertical and horizontal at 90 degrees. You check that it's in the right position by either putting a straight ruler up there or checking that it's in line. You can see pretty much with your eye, and then you look at the side, the position of the stylus, and you can see it's way down past the line, the point of the stylus, just there. When it comes down, it will move slightly, but not very much. So that cartridge has got to be moved backwards in the slots, and then hopefully the diamond tip will rest on that line. Okay, I've moved the cartridge upwards, and so that the stylus tip is now just above the line. When it's lowered down, it's going to be as close. It's quite difficult to see, but it's definitely much closer to where it was before. So get it as close as possible. Take care, obviously, because it's all this is fragile. You have to undo the head cartridge, take it off, move it, and put it back on again. Anyway, that's get it as close as you can, and that will be tracking in the right place now. Checking the speed, you have to look in this window here, which is got the strobe, and you can see it illuminated in red, and depending on whether it's 45, 33 and your country is 60 Hertz or 50 Hertz, you choose the right one, and then you adjust these to get it stationary. That's the 45 RPM one there. Just checking the silence of the platter going round with nothing on it. There's a very slight whirring obviously from the motors and belts, but no noise from the bearing itself. Everything works perfectly on this deck except for the clicking sound that comes from the puck that holds the record on, stops it falling off. This is spring loaded and has a bit of play to allow for different size records, and it clips on. It's just got a groove in there, and it's got the little release part here. It clips on. Normally it's held in here, but it doesn't touch this. This is just for holding it when it's moved away. So you can put that on, and when you start it up, it makes a clicking sound. Well, this goes round with the record, and it's only got a spring inside. Let's just start it up. A constant clicking as it rotates. Now if you just stop stop it a sec and show it's not actually this that is causing the clicking. It's not the turntable itself, it's the actual assembly. As soon as that stops, just take that off briefly and start it up again. With no clicking sound. Okay, you can see what causes that ticking sound. These little press-in parts for releasing it. As it goes round, you can see they drop down. Every time it goes round, each one drops down, making the click. So whatever is there's no, something needs to either keep them down or keep them out. Taking the clamping mechanism apart, just held them by 2 screws which operate the front part there, and there are the 2 little finger parts that you push in, and they've been sliding backwards and forwards. So I'm going to add some grease, some fairly thick grease, put it on there, and that should hold them in place. And they're pushed out by the springs so they won't get stuck in, and yet they won't flop about when these springs are held in by when it's on the spindle. After greasing the activating lugs that you press in so that they don't keep moving in and out as it rotates, the greases hold them in place, and the clicking sound's gone finally. So that's what it was. It was those things just flipping in and out, making that quite a loud click for such little lightweight activating parts. So finally, silence. Okay, one thing I think I mentioned earlier, but I mention it again. If the arm doesn't play vertically, even though it hangs vertically, as soon as it starts playing, it goes at an angle one way or the other. You have to adjust a screw in the back there, which has got a screw in there, which adjusts the photosensitive plate that moves backwards and forwards, and you can move it to 0, the 2 photo cells, so that it picks up equally. Turn that down a bit. Picks up equally and then enables the arm to hang straight. If it's off, if one side has got a bit more signal than the other from the bulbs, it will twist the arm one way or the other. Anyway, that's how you adjust that. It's a screw right in the back there. You can get a long screwdriver in that. This is playing a white record. Some records are see-through. If they're see-through, the prism light will go in and back out through the little lenses and won't play properly. So then you'll have to put on a paper, a very thin piece of paper to block the lenses up before you can play a see-through record. Let's see a 45 in action. These are the grooves that have little reflectors built in the end, like little glass reflectors. So it detects the reflections back through there, and it should play a 45, and it should set it to the right speed. Let's turn it on and start it up. Not the fastest carriage, but that's good because it's got very sensitive. Okay, it's on the disc. Showing 45, 0 tracking error. Just turn it down a bit. YouTube will mess it up. In the window you can detect 45 just fact, I haven't adjusted to 45, so you adjust the speed till you get the. That's it, until they just stop moving. The second one up. That's spot on. So that's your 45s placed fine. It's got markings on here for the track. For instance, if you wanted that track there, which would, but you can't really see it. It's very difficult. To just under 3, there are markings that correspond on the top along there too, but it's all pretty difficult to see. Let's lower it down. Okay, it's all finished now, everything back together, it's playing perfectly, all the controls work, everything works, the strobe works properly, the record detection, there's a blemish on there I couldn't get out. All the controls work, you've got lift, and you've got, you can move it left, and you can move it back to the other way, and you can lower. Got the tracking, all the arrows work, speed, you can change the speed if you want to. Yeah, it's a fine deck, sounds excellent. You press stop and it'll track back to the end, lifts it up, and close that up, turn it off, goes in, lock it in place, finish. I think it sounds excellent. I think it's a fine piece of engineering, and it's with the good cartridge in it, it just sounds fantastic.